Well, hi everyone. This ain't Title Tuesday, but this is a little bit more educational, which occasionally we have to do. I'm playing chess. I'm a Grandmaster, apparently, and I'm going to tell you my thought process and try to help you improve yourselves as a player by learning from me. And I've actually speedrun my way to 2,300. I probably got loads of points back recently from people cheating. And I'm going to look at typical mistakes that people make around this rating range, which is still a pretty good rating range in all respect. Okay, so I normally start with d4. I do play other moves. And my opponent's played knight f6. There's a number of ways to play against this. One of my favourite moves here, rather than doing the Chessbrah London, which we've played lots of times before, is the Trompovsky. You can learn more about this. There's a DVD on this in the GingerGM shop. Digital download if you want to learn about its opening. Go there and check it out. And also like and subscribe this video. Go on. And after this, again, there's a number of moves that can be played. E4 is probably the most principled, getting 2 pawns in the centre. But I'm going to play my knight out to f3 because it's a little bit less theoretical. And this is called the Torre opening, named after a geezer called Torre. And here we can take the knight, but I'm going to maintain the pin, as taking the knight releases the tension, and it's often a good idea to keep as much tension as you can in a position. I think that's what you'll see the stronger players do more than the weaker players. They try to maintain any tension in the position that they have. And my opponent's playing one of the main lines, and one of the best lines for black. He's now striking out against the centre. And I'm just going to calmly defend that, a bit like a London system where you defend the square here. And I want to finish my development, so I'm going to do that now. I'm going to try to bring my bishop, my knight out, and castle. Very simple stuff. So put your pieces on the best squares. This is the nicest diagonal because if black castles, my bishop's pointing that way. So always try to develop your pieces to the best squares, obviously. Don't put them on the bad squares, put them on the good squares. Logical. Chess is a game of logic after all. And now I'm gonna castle. I could also develop my knight, but castling is very normal. And we will see what my opponent does. My opponent castles, so now I'm gonna bring my knight. Where do I bring my knight? This is interesting, but I'm actually gonna go for a London system setup by placing my pawn on this square, so my centre is very well defended. So I'm just going to bring my knight to the middle of the board, and now I've basically got out of the opening, I'd say, because I'm castled, I'm controlling the centre, and I have my piece developed. And here we're going to simply I say simply capture back. Now, I did do quite a lot of research on this position when I was preparing a course on the Torre, and taking is the main move. But there's another very interesting idea here, which is a bit controversial, which I'm going to play. Obviously, pawn takes pawn is very natural, but then black has an interesting idea of going knight d5, and this knight can be quite annoying trying to come to these two squares. Now, what is my middle game plan? As we're in the middle game, you've got to know from the opening, when you get in the middle game, what you should be trying to do. This is the whole point of the opening. You've got to know what you're doing in the middle game. And that's really what you should be taught when you're playing an opening. And I'm going to play a bit of a controversial move. I'm going to now give up my bishop only when my opponent has taken my pawn here. And the reason I'm playing this move is that I want to attack my opponent on this diagonal. So my middle game plan is to get my queen somewhere like here, or bring my bishop back and get my queen here. And my opponent doesn't have a knight to defend that square, so obviously if I could bring my queen in like that, it'd be checkmate. This strategy works a lot better because my opponent's played h6. You might be thinking, why? Well, if my opponent's pawn was on h7, my opponent could play this move g6 and it'd be well defended. But now if my opponent plays g6, it's a little bit weak there, so I might better sacrifice on that square or attack it with h4, h5. But in the meantime, my opponent has now taken a bit of a grasp in the center with this move. And one thing I'm thinking now is if I play pawn here, he might better swap off my good bishop. So I'm going to move my queen to this square first, just so he will have to play a5 if he wants to play that, which he has done. And now I have this interesting move of c4 actually. And if pawn takes, I might better go queen e4 immediately. Looks quite interesting to me. It's a bit... I mean, I could also just say, okay, I'm just going to play with my knights in the center and allow my opponent to swap off this good bishop. Because my knights are looking quite good in the center, and I could back that up with a pawn coming to f4 and a knight coming here and just attack without this bishop. I'd love to keep this bishop. It's a great piece. So c4 takes queen here, takes queen takes here. Should be good. But this move, it's a bit controversial because my opponent's knight will come in and I can't play c3. So you know what? I'm actually just going to go for this plan now and allow my opponent to swap off the light square bishops. It's a bit annoying. I would rather I keep my light square bishops, but you can't always get what you want when you play chess. And my opponent's knight is a long way from this square, meaning that I'm going to now push on the king side. And the reason I'm talking about this square is that when you make pawn moves, you weaken squares, and you've always got to consider which squares you weaken, and this square is weakened. So I've got to think, can my opponent take advantage of that? And I think the answer is no here. So I'm going to move my knights aggressively as possible. And I'm going to try to, I think next, support a pawn storm over there. Anything going on over here? Don't think so. So let's go for it. Let's go for g4. And I can advance like this. It's very risky moving pawns in front of your king. But I can do this. Maybe I should have gone c3 to stop this maneuver. Not a biggie. I can do this because the center is closed and my opponent can't exploit this. So now, can I play g5? Well, my opponent takes there. I'm going to move my last piece into the game. Remember, it is kind of a quicker time limit this, so I don't want to mess around too much. This rook on half open file can't be bad. Always look at improving your pieces. I support my knight there, and I'm kind of getting ready to play this now because every piece seems to be on doing something quite good, right? I mean, I might even go h4 first to support g5, but I don't want to play f5 because that will open up my opponent's rook. But I want to play g5, force my opponent to do something to the bishop. If he takes here, well, I might be able to open up the f-file. And if he comes back, I have this hook. Okay, so he's now looking at coming this way. And now I'm going to play h4 because I have another hook, and I might now... I have two ways to break it open, g5 or h5, and this is just a flexible move to play because it gives me not just the g5 option but the h5 option, so I have that extra option. I mean, instead of moving the rook to e1, it's possible that I could have gone g5 straight away, but I'm just keeping things very flexible and I'm not making any big decisions. It is rapid, so I'm trying to save a bit of time. I've already spent half my time. I'm trying to save myself a bit of time in case I need to calculate. So my opponent's gone here. This is quite interesting, but I can probably just take this one. And my queen can always come back here. And I've got rook f2 defending here. So there's no point being afraid when you play. And if you see an option of grabbing something, then do it. And my opponent has to prove. I think he was getting a bit impatient there because that's the other thing. If you don't make any decisions immediately, it's often a lot worse for your opponent. This is the key thing to remember. So I didn't make a decision about this. My opponent got scared about all of these moves. I'm going to take this way, f-file, not going to think about it. And he's maybe made a mistake there by giving me a pawn. And that's the thing. Often you can win games by not making decisions. It sounds quite weird. And now, again, I'm not going to make a decision of which pawn to do. I'm going to move my rook here. I'm going to defend here and also potentially try to hit him over here. Now, where's my queen best placed? I feel here. I could move it back to e2, but I don't think there's any need. I might want to defend this one. And now my opponent does have a bit of pressure on these files. But can we use... My knight's not a great piece, so I'm just wondering how we can try to get an attack going here. And also, do I play a3 or don't I play a3? I don't think I do. So he does have a bit of pressure. He's going to move his rook here and attack this one. And maybe I actually need to move my rook here. So I'm defending both of these guys. I don't know if that's the best way to play. The other thing I could have tried to do is get my knight to a better square. But then my opponent's bishop can swap it off. I mean, it's only a pawn, and my opponent has pressure for the pawn. So it's not, like I say, entirely clear this. But one idea I'm going to try to do is called Alekhine's gun. And that is you treble up your pieces, your heavy pieces, your rooks on a queen, against a certain target. So I want to move this rook here and this queen behind it. So you've got your strongest piece at the back. And then I'm going to have 3 pieces directed towards there, which should be a bit of pressure. So my opponent's defending potentially against that. Now, I don't think this knight's doing anything here. So I'm going to give it that chance to come over to one of these 2 squares. D3 looks like a good square. I'm also giving myself the F3 square for the rook. D3 looks very nice because it defends B2. It can come forwards into the game as well. So another thing I want to do is Queen F1 and get the knight to this nice central square. Just looks like a nice square. I might be able to attack from that square. I can defend my weak point here from that square. And I might be able to come forwards into the queen side from that square. So on F3 it wasn't doing anything. It couldn't really go forwards. It couldn't do anything. My opponent now is going to try to aim against this. So I'm going to continue the plan of getting my knight here, which should defend the pressure on that file. I also have to watch out for little pawn nudges, but you can see I've placed my rook here. So if my opponent does come here, there's going to be some pawn nudges. Okay, so he's moved his queen in. Now that's probably a good move from him, because even though he's a pawn down, I'd love to take this. I might have to take this, but he's going to have some pressure there, and then try to get my knight to e4. Can I defend everything in that position? He's got no pawn breaks. So I'm now going to take, and I don't really want to play a3, but I don't want him breaking with a3 and bringing his rook in. And I'm just looking, what is my opponent's plan? He can't move the f-pawn. I take on, pass on. These pawn breaks don't do anything. I either take or I move the other one. His bishop can't do anything. It attacks there, not a problem. I defend it or move it even. If he goes rook here, I come back here. So what? I'm defending. And my long-term plan is to get my knight to this square. It's a maneuvering game. How do I get my knight there? I don't even know yet. I don't come via here because of the pressure there. So I've got to get to g3. How do I get to g3? Well, I'm going to trace back g3 to e1. And it looks to me like this is the right route. So my knight is going to go to f3, h2, f1, g3. And the reason I think this might be fine is because I've worked out that my opponent doesn't have any breaks. To be sure about that, maybe I should have played g5 first, just to stop his only pawn break, f6, because g5 he really doesn't have any pawn breaks. But f6 I'm not worried about, because I take on, pass on, I have a new weakness. So I'm going to play g5 anyway, because it just closes it down. Let's do it. My opponent's hasn't got any plan here at all. And now I'm going to maneuver my knight to this square, as we discussed, because from this square, again, it has many potentials. It can come here, it can come here, here, or here. My opponent can't do anything at the moment. So we've got our knight into this square. And also, what is my weakness? This one. Now I could come here, but I'm going to move my king to a better square, because then it frees up a rook. So I'm moving my king now to defend this one. I'm not even thinking about tactics. I'm moving it all the way over here, because now one of my rooks is freed up. It doesn't have to stay like this, and I increase the pressure on his weak point. Now, what should we play here? Well, now it's time to look at tactics. I've got all my pieces to the best squares. Can I grab this one, or is my knight going to get in trouble? I think I can grab it. Now, the problem is, when I come back here, he might have bishop takes e5, but he's gone for it straight away. Does that work? And he's trying to trap my knight. Well, let's see. I'm still a pawn up. And can my knight now get out of trouble? Let's see. I mean, again, the game has been... Well, actually, no. Where's it going from there? That's not a great move. I'm going to have to sacrifice it here. Maybe it is all right. It should be all right. We're equal on material, except I have an extra knight. I'm thinking my knight is going to get trapped, but it's not, is it? I'm overthinking things, and now the game is over. We're winning the rook. We're winning on f7. And to be honest, that was a pretty smooth game there. Where did my opponent go wrong? I mean, at this level, you're not going to win games easily. You're going to have to fight hard. I didn't really do anything. I didn't calculate hard in that game. I calculate 1-2 moves ahead. Let's have a look at the key moments. The opening seemed all very normal. When he plays d5, he loses, I feel, a bit of his possibilities. And he's got to now go for a break over here. But it does give me this square without him being a kick piece away. So that's why I changed plans very shortly. Okay, first of all, I try to put him off this idea. He plays a good move. And now I change plans. And again, you've got to know different middle game effective plans. And controlling this square, using it at base of attack, is a very good plan. And we continue to do that without thinking. We built up. And now you can see that I didn't make a decision straight away, and this induced him to really lose a pawn. We grabbed that pawn there, and he did get a little bit of pressure for it, and we still had to think how to win. And this was kind of key here. It was maneuvering the pieces. How do we get this to work? Well, we've got to work out what is his only plans here. His only plans involve pressurizing b2 and playing a3 at the right moment. Now, if he ever plays a3, I'm not going to take it because he gets a bit of play. I'm always going to push this pawn 1 or 2 squares. So we can't move that one. So then we've got to think, how do we arrange our pieces? And the knight on d3 is a lovely square. And when you're rearranging, when you're doing positional play like this, you've got to work out, do you have time to make these positional ideas work? And they're only really going to work if you are not under any threats and you can't see any, your opponent doesn't have any plans. And we've worked out the opponent doesn't have any plans, and we use this same principle even here to defend all our weaknesses. Let's stop his one pawn break because we don't want him getting counterplay with that. And I worked out here that he doesn't have anything he can do. No pawn breaks, no ways to get his pieces into the game. But I can improve by putting my knight here, which has many potentials, to take this pawn, to take this pawn, and that really won the game. Okay, a bit more educational, that video. I'll try to do some other stuff, but you know, I do want to finish this speed run. I do want to try to get to 2500 or whatever, because we started at the lowest of the low, and you can go back and look at the previous 55 speed runs to try to help yourself improve your chess. And at the end of the day, it's nice having a crazy title Tuesday, but I am a Grandmaster and I do want you guys to get better at chess as well, and sometimes you have to do these more boring videos, or maybe some of you like prefer these videos. I don't know, but give me a like and a subscribe either way.